The United States and Russia are both putting a positive spin on the meeting today between Joe Biden and Vladimir Putin, but it was clear from their comments to reporters afterwards that tensions remain.
We didn't experience any pressure, although there was a candid and open conversation.
Well, it was very, as we say, which will shock you coming from me, somewhat colloquial.
But as for American sources, they've said that most of the cyber attacks in the world are carried out from the cyber realm of the United States. In second place is Canada.
I pointed out to him we have significant cyber capability, and he knows it. He doesn't know exactly what it is, but it's significant. And if in fact they violate these basic norms, we will respond.
So, will there be changes in the relationship in the months to come? Andrey Kortunov is the Director General of the Kremlin-founded Russian International Affairs Council in Moscow. It's a nonprofit think tank which represents the Russian community of foreign policy experts. Mr. Kortunov, welcome to the program, and certainly not high expectations going into this summit meeting, given the very difficult state of relations between Russia and the United States, and yet both leaders came out and said this was constructive. What's your takeaway?
Well, I think that it was constructive in the sense that both leaders can claim that they won. However, of course, the devil is always in detail, and a lot will depend on how the outcomes and outputs of these meetings are interpreted respectively in Moscow and in Washington. And the worst thing that can happen right now is that both sides would claim that the other side has their own version of what happened in Geneva, and that might lead to further deterioration of the relationship. But if bureaucrats, military experts on both sides start working on specific issues, it might help to stabilize the relationship.
So, one thing that we certainly heard from the U.S. president today is, in his assessment, Putin does not want another Cold War. Do you think that's accurate?
I think that's accurate. I think that Putin does not want to have another escalation with the West, not only because it is expensive, but also because the Russian public doesn't want it. If you look at opinion polls in Russia, you'll see that a broad majority of Russians would favor better relations with the West.
What is the difference in the way that Putin views Biden as compared to his predecessor, Trump?
Well, in certain ways, it was easier for Putin to deal with Donald Trump because I think that the Trump's mindset, so to say, was closer to that of Putin. Biden is different. Biden is like Angela Merkel. He's not Erdogan, he's not Xi Jinping, he's not Vladimir Putin. So I think it's not easy for Putin to communicate with Biden. At the same time, I would say that in the US-Russian relations, respect has always been more important than sympathy or affinity. And it's more important for Putin to find out that Biden can deliver on his commitments, because the problem with Trump was that Trump always failed to deliver, and the relationship between Russia and the United States under Trump was continuously deteriorating. So if Biden is different, if Biden can deliver on his commitments, and if Biden is not overruled by his associates or by his political opponents on the Hill, that would definitely make Putin more willing to invest into Biden and in this relationship.
Can I ask you about one particular thorn in these relationships, and that is cybersecurity and cyber attacks that emanate out of Russia targeting the United States? And increasingly, we see that the targets of cyber attacks have been critical infrastructure, whether it's pipelines or hospitals, certainly seeing some of the same things here in Canada. One thing that we did hear from Biden coming out of that meeting today is he said to President Putin, how would you like it if we were to engage in cyber attacks against your oil fields? Do you see that as a military threat?
Well, it's close to a military threat given the importance of the oil industry for the Russian Federation. Definitely, the United States has a formidable cyber capacity. And if the US president wants to complicate the life of Mr. Putin and those who produce oil in Russia, he can do it. No doubt about that. But my take on cyber is that this is probably the most surprising outcome of the meeting in Geneva. It seems, though it has not been directly confirmed by the US side, but according to Vladimir Putin, the United States has agreed to form something like a joint task force on cyber. This is something that Russia insisted on for a long time, but unsuccessfully. Even Trump, after he tentatively agreed to this idea, had to basically take his words back after the meeting in Hamburg. If indeed a joint cyber group can be formed between Washington and Moscow, it would be a significant accomplishment, and hopefully that would at least partially diffuse the cyber problem between the two countries, because it's not just that the United States is concerned about the Russian interference. I think that many in Russia are also concerned about what the United States can possibly do if it wants to use its cyber capacity against Russia.
Can I talk to you about human rights? I know Putin went into this meeting saying he will not be counseled on domestic affairs by the U.S. president or by anybody. And yet the U.S. president did bring that up, he says, during the meeting, talking about Alexei Navalny, for instance. Putin, though, refused to say Alexei Navalny's name, apparently. Biden responding that if Alexei Navalny were to die in prison, where he remains right now as we speak, that there would be very serious consequences for Russia. How do you see that playing out?
Well, first of all, I think that the overwhelming majority of Russians wish Navalny well. And we only hope that he will not stay in prison for too long and he will get out healthy. But I think that for Putin, it is a very sensitive issue, and it is arguably one of the red lines. His message to Biden, or his message to the West in general, is that you should not mess with our domestic affairs. You have no moral right to do that because you have many problems back at home, and you should start with fixing these problems. And let us handle our problems the way we consider appropriate and applicable to our situation. You should keep in mind that we are in the beginning of a new political season in Russia. Elections to the Russian State Duma are approaching. These are likely to be very difficult elections for the Kremlin. And this is something which is clearly one of the most sensitive issues for the Russian leadership. So I don't think that Biden can convince Putin to change his approach to the domestic political agenda. I don't think that Putin believes in the universality of human rights the way they are understood in the West. I think that Putin is very critical of what's going on in many Western countries. And I think, as I said, this is one of the red lines.
Andrey Kortunov, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.